Hello, good afternoon. It's great to be here at Phocuswright in Amsterdam. I hear that Ajax has won the league, so it's very kind of celebratory mood outside today, and I hope I can bring the same kind of level of energy and passion to my presentation here today. So I'm the CEO of Awaze, and I don't know if you know what Awaze is, so I'm going to tell you a bit about our company. We are Europe's leading managed vacation rentals and parks business. We have over 110,000 accommodation choices all across EMEA. We're present in 36 countries, and we serve over 8 million guests every year. And I'm very proud also to be leading a team of, depending on the season, 4,000 incredibly talented and passionate employees. Our brands are brands that are well recognized in the respective markets. Here in Holland, for example, we ran Landal Green Parks, and we are not just in Holland, but we're very strong in Holland. It was originated in Holland, vacation parks. We have about 88 of them in Europe, and we're extremely good, proud of the parks we have. In the UK, we run several brands such as Ho Seasons, Cottages.com, and of course, James Villa Holidays. And across Europe, we have Novasol, which also does vacation rental that serves a range of owners and guests across most of continental Europe. So that's a bit about our group. And I also wanted to tell you about what's changing in our industry and how this group is being impacted by changes in the vacation rentals and the parks space. The guests today are increasingly having higher expectations in terms of what they want to see when they come to a vacation rental accommodation or indeed to a park. The communities in which we operate, vacation rental is no longer at the edges of the tourism industry. We are becoming mainstream. And as such, there's a lot more scrutiny from governments, from municipalities, in terms of how the actors within these vacation rental business, how we act and how we behave responsibly. Competition, of course, is increasing. Just a few weeks ago, we heard that Oyo invested in Leisure, a big deal here in Europe. They're based here in Amsterdam. And if you read through any of the earnings reports of the big OTAs the last couple of quarters, about half the questions are around alternate accommodation. So competition in this space is getting fierce and real. And lastly, but certainly not least, the owners are having an increasing range of choices in which they can, have their property sold in order to monetize a very important asset for them financially, but also a very important asset to them emotionally. For many people, this is more than just an asset. It's their second home, and they want it to be well taken care of. I have about 20 years experience in travel, and I thought about what's changed. How is this, similar in vacation rental to what may have happened before in travel? And I thought back to one of my first business trips ever, which was around 20 years ago when I wanted to go to London and to book a hotel. And at the time, really, there were no websites in Sweden that would show you pictures of any hotels in London. So you were in the hands of a call center agent, and you were more likely to trust a brand than not a brand. Staying in an independent was something edgy and crazy people did. And there was this big divide between chain hotels and independent hotels. How the picture has changed. Today, we have a range of accommodation choices all on our fingertips or in our phones. From chain hotels to lightly branded ones, independent, all the way down to shared rooms or indeed campsites. So we have this plethora of offerings that is now available to any consumer in the space. And that's great. But sometimes I think we as an industry get a little bit caught up in what we call things, and these denominations are true for us. But if you are a guest, you may not know the lingo. You're just thinking about, hey, where do I book my next vacation? Am I going with my wife, with my kids? Am I going on an anniversary trip with my wife? Am I going on a business trip? What's a good place to stay? We had people, because of corporate policies in my previous job, that stayed in Airbnbs in San Francisco because it was getting so expensive. I have stayed in everything from campsites to five-star hotels, and it all depends on the trip type I want to take. So I'm not thinking in these categories. Of course, for the owners, it's a bit different because you will have different choices depending on who you choose to be your provider and who you choose to take care of your property. But I do think as an industry, we have to remember that there's still a lot of people who say, I booked on Google. So what's our recipe for surviving that, onslaught of choices, and how do we create, what we say everyday amazing at my current company, Awaze? The recipe is not the one you see on the left. That is actually the formal recipe for creating the Awaze sauce, which I learned as we were getting the brand name, is an Ethiopian spicy sauce. And I actually got this as a gift basket from some of my colleagues, so I have yet to try it, but that's on my to-do list. But what I really wanted to talk about was, we believe we can create everyday amazing, and I love that tagline because I think it speaks to that you can have amazing every day. You can have it close by. You don't have to fly away. We just heard about fly shame on the rail panel before. Well, what we do is local. It's great. You can not only have to take the train there, you can actually drive there in many cases. So it's a great, concept for what our brands do. And we think we do it by knowing our guests, the owners, and the communities in which we serve. On the guest side, they may not always know where they booked, but they do understand quality and they do understand brand. And they do want to know that there's somebody there to help them if something goes wrong. And this is something we do. We survey all of our properties. We know that they're there. There's a lot of kind of fake vacation rentals around. You could get scammed. It will never happen with any of our brands. So they do understand that, and we see it reflected in our loyalty rates. We have lots of people coming back to all of our leading brands across the portfolio. The owners, as I mentioned, of course, this is a big selling point, that yes, they want to know that you are there, that you are local, much like in the hospitality or the travel business in general, people care about relationships. We are all part of this industry, and the owners are no different, although they own a house. They want to know that if you're in Cornwall, that they can speak to somebody who's close to them and local, and if you're in Croatia, equally in Croatia, that you're going to have somebody there taking care of your house, making sure you get quality guests coming to your vacation rental property, and that you'll be taken care of. Lastly, and this is something I think is really important in all this talk about over-tourism that we're hearing these days, we are predominantly rural. We are predominantly extra-urban. We don't work in the big cities. And the communities in which we work, we are seen as a fundamental pillar of those communities. We bring employment to those communities. We keep restaurants open. We give the electrician a job. We give the plumber a job. And we work very much in sync with the local municipality and the regions in which we serve. And I just brought a couple of pictures up here. Last weekend we had for the Novasol brand, over 500 employees out cleaning beaches across Europe in the communities in which we have our guests coming and staying. And this is not paid, this is just for charity and because people want to serve the community in which they work. And of course, we also have Bolo the bear, which for Dutch people, he may be recognizable, but he's the mascot of Landal. And Landal takes its enormous pride in how it serves the local communities and being a green player in which we serve in all of our parks. So this is great being local, but even more importantly, having the scale we do, operating across all of these countries in Europe, also really helps us, being able to put some investment in and building better solutions, both for guests and owners, and also helping the communities where we work. Because many of the problems are similar. And by having the scale we have as a group, we can bring those benefits to all of our stakeholders. And lastly, that's a simple recipe. We think we understand, we are both local, we have the scale, we always talk about guests, never consumers, and we really take pride in the relationships we have developed with our owners over time. And that's how we think we create everyday amazing. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Henrik. Please welcome our Talkbackers, Mike Coletta, Manager of Research and Innovation at Phocuswright, and Daniel Krisch, Senior Director of Hospitality at Oracle.
All right, that's a nice overview. Thank you for that. Do you want to kick
things
off?
I got a question that also I got asked a couple of times when speaking to others, which is the why. So why would someone give up a strong brand name like Wyndham in order to create a brand like Awaze? And then the second part of that is, what does Awaze stand for? Is it meaning?
So the first one was, one of the answers is we had to. This was a carve-out. So for those of you who don't know, this group used to belong to Wyndham until about May 12th last year when it was sold to a private equity group. And as part of that deal was you have to get rid of the name Wyndham. Now, I do think, as a brand name, I also happen to think that the name we have is incredible. And if I could pick today, okay, I'm paid to say this, but if I could pick today, I would pick Awaze any day of the week. And the second part was...
what does it mean? Does it mean anything, Awaze?
No, but we think it was kind of a play on, well, as I told you, it's an Ethiopian sauce, but that's not what we're going for here. We think it's a good play on amazing and being away. So, but not, so it's kind of a play on those words.
Nice.
On the M&A topic, I read some interviews online with you. You said M&A may be a part of your growth strategy going forward. Wonder if you could elaborate a little bit more, shed some light on what some of your plans are there.
Sure. We're very active on the M&A front. We closed the deal a couple of weeks ago with Finca Yorca and Mallorca, the leading player in Mallorca. We have done a couple of smaller acquisitions in Mulberry Cottages in the UK, for example, and we have several more in the pipeline. I think this is a fantastic space in Europe where it's still very fragmented, and you find these small, really local jewels with, great patterns both on the supply side and the demand side. So yeah, we're very open to, looking at all the opportunities that we have, specifically in Europe, which is our main focus.
Mm-hmm. Maybe a little bit on the market as well. So what's your take on Marriott getting into the home rental business? So is it something hotel chains should do?
Well, as I mentioned, I think, it's accommodation, right? It's hospitality. I think, hotels will bring lots of great knowledge in terms of, they also think guests. I think this is a bit different in terms of the ownership profile. But I think these alliances that we sometimes create, they don't exist necessarily in the eyes of the consumer or the guests. And so I think it's a logical thing to happen. Now, are they going to be as successful in delivering that concept? And, are there different skill sets needed? I think maybe. So I'm not necessarily afraid of it, but I think it's inevitable.
You mentioned in your presentation Oyo acquiring at leisure. Wondering if you could elaborate on your thoughts there. What does that mean for Awaze? What does that mean for the market at large?
Well, we're going to stay focused on what I mentioned here, which is really trying to deliver value to the guests we serve, the owners we serve, and within the communities we work. So like it doesn't change any of my plans or my team's plans at all. I think it's a symbolic. It shows that the category is being taken seriously. And I think generally that's a good thing. I think what happened to the hotel industry, if you go back, I'm now old in this game, but 20 years, independent hotels was like this small thing. There was an edgy thing to stay at, you couldn't do it. And of course, as more investment happened in not just the OTAs, but the internet, TripAdvisor, bringing transparency to this category, I think it helped the whole category. And I think it's massively helped the consumers, the guests as well. So I think overall, I think it's a good thing for the category that we see real players coming in, investing money, and this becoming better. And of course, I think we need to make sure that we work very hard to, stay ahead and deliver an excellent value to our owners and deliver an excellent experience to our guests.
I'd like to, because I've seen in the press releases, initially there was some mentioning on technology being a driver or a differentiator. So first question I had was, would be your main distribution channel is how much of the business is direct versus indirect?
I will say this, and most of our business is direct. Now, I also think you can have good and bad indirect, and you can have good and bad direct. And I think for anybody in this room, the game is to have good traffic, whether direct or indirect. And so I think you get that by really focusing on your value proposition, creating loyalty, and also, of course, part of that value proposition is having good technology, so that making sure that if somebody comes to our app or to our the phone or to the desktop, that they find it seamless and they find it easy to find what they're looking for. So yeah, we still have predominant amount of traffic coming through the direct channels. And the focus really for me is also to say well, that's great, but I'm really interested in what I would call good traffic, which is ideal traffic, is people who come back to you organically, and that's what we really want to do. And in order to do that, you have to work very hard at creating a great experience from booking to stay.
Mm-hmm. So one of your biggest challenges, and maybe even Thinking about competition, is it just the sheer magnitude of options available at this point with all the rental by owner units that people may be comparing? How do you think about that?
I'm less worried about, at this point, competition, because I think there's so much out there that we have yet to capture. And I'm much more worried about, like, I can get kind of into the details with the team sometimes, but like, how do we make the experience better, right? And both for owners and the guests. So I think, that's really where I'm spending most of my time. And I think if you focus on that, value will be derived from that. I'm not naive about competition. I know that, there's, I hate these words, frenemy, co-competition, like, is Google a friend or I'm like, well, yes. And we also work with some of the, big OTAs. We work with Google. We also work direct. We work with the trade, travel agencies. But again, I said main focus for us as a team is really on like, hey, how do we improve the experience?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe a little bit more on the technology side, since you said it's a key. So Airbnb and Merit having central platforms where they consolidate all inventory. I think that's still a challenge for you to expose all the inventory through a single channel.
Yeah, we have. This company was run very independently. The brands were run very independently, and as a result of which there was not really any sharing of anything. I think sharing of knowledge is a great thing within a group, and clearly also sharing of the inventory. I mean, it's a bit crazy to me that some of my products in the UK are available on big third-party channels, but they're not available on my local brands in Denmark, for example. So obviously that's something we're looking into. In order to do that well, I mean, you can always anything can be done technically, but to do it well, to make sure that the guest experience is solid and coherent, that's the hard part. And in order to do that well, we need to, focus on getting the tech a little bit up, a little bit better. And I'm very proud. I mean, we're making a big investment in technology, and we're making a big investment in talent and technology, and I think that's going to help us enormously going forward.
Do you think, I have one follow-on on
Sure.
this. Do you think loyalty program could be boosting or helping to drive traffic?
I think that's, look, everyone's like, look, what you want is loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
Now the question is, do you need a program or not, right? And I don't know the answer to that in this category yet. I've seen lots of bad loyalty programs, everything from retail to, everything else. So I think people always fall in love, well, maybe not, but some people fall in love with the idea of a loyalty program. It's not a panacea. It doesn't necessarily make it better. So it goes back to, if you create a great experience, people tend to come back, whether you have a loyalty program or not. And then, of course, can you then tweak it if you have extra incentives? But I think you have to start with making sure that the experience is truly good. No amount of points is going to help you. And I think when you are an intermediary, you have it's a different challenge on the economics. Because if you own the inventory, truly own it, say you're an airline or you're Marriott, well, you can control when you have rooms and when you don't. But in some cases, if we don't own the inventory, like, it can get more costly because, we have an ultimate owner. So I've not made my mind up on whether we need it. What I do know is I'd like to increase that loyalty.
I wanted to ask about the market. I don't know if you saw Maggie's presentation earlier. Maggie from Phocuswright presented some of our recent data on the private accommodation market in Europe, showing growth is increasing in the UK, but softening in France and Germany, and I think the sense was elsewhere in Europe. So I was wondering if you're seeing that, or where you're seeing growth or softening, and where you're looking for it.
I mean, we think, there was this news also today about Thomas Cook, they're certainly not seeing growth. So I think in general, what we're seeing is enormous opportunity, because it's like, what's the category? How many houses are left that we could be getting, and how many unreported bookings are happening? So I think there's still a need for better data in this category. I think, hotels have kind of gotten there. We have very good solid data on what's happening to RevPARs, et cetera, in the hotel category. I think the data we have needs work over time, so Phocuswright could help. That would be great.
Happy to.
And I know you already have some data packets there, but it's hard. In general, we think the opportunity is great, and I think if anything, we've seen that Brexit is not helping in some of our brands, but in general, good growth across all the brands, and very happy with the potential.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What does platinum equity bring to the table for you?
Well, I think it's the biggest benefit is when we were at Wyndham, and I wasn't there when this was Wyndham, but this was a division which wasn't necessarily core. So then you're treated as a division that's not necessarily core, which is you don't necessarily get the investment. So we now have a very active owner. So everything from M&A to like wanting to put capex into the parks, to really pushing to invest and make this, a bigger company. That's really what they bring. I think they're very knowledgeable, and they believe in the team and the deal, and they want to make it bigger. So having a smart, active, aggressive owner, that's a great thing.
Yeah, I guess they want some return, right? Usually they're known for.
That's their business model. So yes, but again, I think if we focus, my business is not to focus on the return. My business is to focus on, let's do a good job. If we do that, I fully believe that there will be a return for the owners.
I also want to ask about supply. Are you 100% focused on growth in Europe, or are you thinking outside Europe? I think you said not. But how about also urban versus traditional destinations?
So on supply, I would say I spend most of my time thinking about European supply. If there are opportunities outside, we might take a peek. Again, we have aggressive owners who have very open eyes and have a very good network of deals across the globe. And I think I'm not excluding that as a possibility, but day to day I'm working on how do we take what we have today and make that better. On urban versus non-urban, we have a number of properties. We actually have a brand as well called Friendly Rentals, which is largely in Spain, predominantly in the Madrid, Barcelona markets. And then we have some properties also in Croatia, which are in more cities. It's a smaller part of what we do. I think the opportunity in general is bigger in the rural or non-urban parts, so that will be more of a focus for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
From your view, what would property owners expect from a technology perspective compared to Airbnb, keyless entry, door locks? What do you think, or what do you know is the expectation from a property owner perspective?
As I mentioned in my presentation, I think that their expectations are going up, right?
Yep.
Because we now have there's alternatives for them in the market where people are spending a lot of money on tech, so that's getting more seamless. So they want to have great technology, but for the types we do, they also want the service. Like everything from the pricing to the key handling, to managing complaints. And one of the benefits we offer to an owner is that there's much less hassle. We have a number of people who have left us who then come back because they find out there's a lot of work to actually rent out via, if you have to do everything yourself. And that's a solution that I think will work for some people. But primarily what we do is people's second home. So if you have a second home, you have some assets and you have some money, and then your simplicity is also a really important factor, and that's something I think we bring to the table of knowing the local communities and making sure that the owners know that they're getting quality guests, that the house is being taken care of.
Not sure if I missed this, but are you doing any business travel with any of the brands, or is it all leisure?
I don't know, but it's all leisure.
Not a focus.
Not on focus. No, mm-hmm. Not on focus.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You answered the question for the property ownership perspective. What are, from a guest perspective, expectations on technology? Guest-facing mobile apps, etc. Anything you've been thinking about?
I think it's less about the mobile apps, but one of the things that what the guests expect is, it's pretty simple. Like, is it clean? Mm-hmm. Is it easy to find? Is the key where the key should be? And is the property matching what I saw in the photos, and am I getting value for the expectation? So very similar to, I think, what you would have if you went to a hotel, for example, right? And I think what the consumers have today, which they didn't have 10, 20 years ago, or maybe certainly not 20 years ago, is you can just do much more research online. So it's important for us to have the photos, not 5, but 25, 30, 50 photos, depending on the properties. In Finca Yorca, for example, we have drone photography of all our big villas. They really want to get a feel for what that property looks like. I think one of the amazing things about the industry, and one where I tend to be a bit contrarian to what people say. People don't want an Amazon-like experience when you book travel. When I go on vacation, man, I love buying the guidebook of Iceland, checking out, the topography of the trail I'm going to do, looking even for me at different accommodation choices. It's a way for me to savor my vacation before I go on vacation. So the content we put on our websites is also incredibly important. And I think, this kind of delusion of it should just be one click. No, that's for when I buy my, USB stick on Amazon. Yes, please take the hassle away. Not when I go on holiday.
Doing anything else there in content creation?
I mean, we have because we again, most of our photos we take ourselves. We really curate it. I think we can do more as a group. We do it very kind of segregated today, so I think there's a way for us to do it even better if we were to combine resources a bit and make the money work a bit smarter for us.
About virtual reality, it might be nice to be able to tour some of the villas in VR.
It would be great, and I think, if you were in my product team, I would say you could put it on the backlog, but I think we have, I'd love, my son just got this VR kit, he's 14, and, we had to defuse the box, they're super fun. But I think there's even more we can do in terms of, if I'm being a bit kind of making sure our mobile experience rocks, for example.
Higher priorities. I think we're just about out of time, so Henrik Kjellberg, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The pronunciation right there.